I am your host, Nicole Will, and we're so happy you're here as we navigate the world with your aging loved one. We are here to come alongside older adults, family members, and the senior living community as we explore the world of aging and elder care with helpful resources, informative interviews, and approachable conversation. We get to do this together, so join us on our journey, and this is the Will Gather podcast. Memories can bring us happiness and also be a constant reminder of the loss that we've experienced. Our grief can change moment to moment, and it can be difficult to predict how we will experience it or others around us. Today, my guest is Patti LaFleur. She is a former care partner for her mom, who she cared for many years after her mom's dementia diagnosis. She moved in with her family. Patti's mom came to live with her. She is sharing her story today, how she honors her mom, how she changes the stigma around dementia, and shares with us how we can truly connect with our loved ones and also navigate the grief that we experience. Patti has a large following on Instagram and has let us into her world to see her moments with her mom, to shed light on her experience, how she is navigating grief, how she is an advocate for care partners. She continues her volunteer work, working with the Alzheimer's Association, caring across generations, and many other organizations that can empower and encourage family care partners. Today, Patti and I talk about what we wish others would understand about grief, how our relationships can change in grief, how we navigate the holidays or those special events, how we process and experience grief before our loved one passes away, setting good boundaries, letting go of expectations, not only of others, but for ourselves. And within Patti's story, everything she has learned about love and compassion and care that came from her mom. And through it all, the love remains. Here is my interview with Patti LaFleur. Hi, Patti. I'm so excited that we finally get the opportunity to meet and talk. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. It's so exciting. I'm so glad we get to do this. I know we've been connected online for a long time, but this just feels exciting.
Yes, I agree. I know I've been watching your story and just my heart just connected to you as, throughout the year. And you probably didn't even know that, right? When you're online and, and you're sharing, but you've really, I know, have changed so many lives, and your message and your openness and your authenticity and how you share. So thank you from all of us that get to witness that.
Thank you. It truly is my honor to share my mom and I's story. And I just really feel like, since her passing, especially, it's just a beautiful way to honor who she was and who we were together.
Yes. There's so much love that exists. I can see that. And oh my gosh, her smile is, and I commented the other day, I was like, it literally lights up a room. It's so magical.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
smiling
I
down.
always said she was like sunshine in human form. So
Literally,
I just love that she gets to keep shining.
Completely. Yes. Through everything that you do. You and I, because we haven't had the opportunity to visit in person, so cannot wait to hear more about you from you. I know glimpses of it, and I know that in your story, it is going to help so many people. Can you tell us, okay, so how did this whole experience begin for you, and what was that like? And we can just kind of dive into that a little bit.
Yeah. So my mom got diagnosed with dementia probably about 9 years ago now. And at first, she was in the early stages. And so my dad and her were able to successfully navigate the process together. But as time went on, the disease progressed. And I got married 4 years ago. And that was a big turning point in the amount of care my mom needed. My dad had really tried to kind of hide away, as much care as she needed, but events like that put it all out in the open. So that was a big turning point in how much involvement I would need to have in order to best support my mom and support my dad as well. Flash forward about a year after my husband and I got married, and I really stepped into more of a full-time role with her. And she eventually moved in with me and my husband, and she lived with us until she passed. Um, it was, there's been kind of all the emotions you could have along the journey, right? Like there was a lot of denial, and anger, and then some jealousy of my friends not having to do this journey that I was having to do, especially when I was trying to navigate getting married and wanting to start my own family. And, I was finishing my master's and working full time. There was a lot of like, this isn't happening to us. And so I don't want to see it. But then that wasn't a choice anymore, really. And I just then decided that we're going to embrace this journey. So the big goal for me as the caregiver for my mom was quality of life. So I wanted her to have the best quality of life that she could have. Just because she had a dementia diagnosis did not mean her life was over. So we did everything. We traveled together. We went shopping. We really maintained the things that she loved doing. It looked very different, but we still did those things. We did art, we did music, we watched TV. She had pets, they were robotic, but they were her pets that she took care of and she loved. She helped me with chores. And she just really was another member of our family and contributing to our family in such a beautiful, positive way. There was lots of heartbreak and lots of hard decisions along the way. I quit my job. There's just a lot of things that happened, but we really tried to embrace this journey together. And I think through the videos and through the things that I share, it's pretty apparent the powerful relationship we had.
Yes, what I love is that it gives people a glimpse into what's possible and how they can connect to their loved one and do all of those things. I feel like sometimes people forget that things don't need to stop. You can still travel, and all the crafts that you did and the cooking and all of that. It's like that inspiration that sometimes we need when we feel like, I don't know if I can do that. Well, yes, you can,
Yeah.
because we can see it, and you're sharing that.
And you don't have to travel, right? Travel is a big thing, but that doesn't mean that you can't connect. Like you can still do an art project, or you can still cook together, or you can still do something that you both enjoy, read a book, whatever that is. It doesn't have to be these big elaborate things. I mean, I was like, nothing's stopping us.
Yeah.
She always wanted to go to Disneyland. We're making it happen, like there's nothing, besides the pandemic, it slowed down those parts. But like, other than that, like I wasn't going to let anything stop us. She was in a wheelchair. She was moving towards the later stages at that point, but we still did it,
Get it in and do it. Yeah. And we never regret that, right? It's like we
No.
look back and go, oh my gosh, I have that incredible memory.
Yeah. And even though that was really the start of her decline, I still will never regret it, because she would have started to decline at home. So why not decline in Disneyland?
Oh my gosh, that's so true. Such a good point. How did you decide to take your story and then want to share it with everyone else? What was that?
Yeah,
decision
I
like?
actually didn't mean to. It was super unintentional. So the reason why my Instagram name is still Miss Patty Cake is because that was my personal Instagram. If you go back 15 years on there, it's like probably college Patty, she's just like living her life, I don't know. I don't even know if I've gone back that far in a long time. But my mom moved in with me, and my mom became a really big part of my life. And I was posting pictures of going to the movies with my girlfriends, or my husband and I going out to dinner. So of course I was going to start posting pictures of my mom. But then as I started to post pictures and start to do hashtags, like that first dementia hashtag, I feel like I got connected with other caregivers. I feel like that is when I first met like Mom of My Moms and, Life with Grams. Like I met those people through not even intentionally trying to share my story, but through having these shared hashtags. And then from there, it's just turned into what it has become. It was never intentional to try to be like, oh, this is what I'm doing. But then as I started to do it and connect with others, and then find power in sharing our joy, and people sharing like, your mom brings me joy, I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll keep posting. And then now it's just become such a beautiful way to really reflect and honor who she was and our journey and our story. And, there's so many like parts of our story that are so powerful, the adoption piece, the finding joy, the connecting with other caregivers, that it just feels like there's some value to our story. And then I started to share on other social media sites, and that was obviously more intentional, but really in the beginning it was just
Yeah.
what's going
Here's
on in
my
Patty's
life.
life.
Here's my
Yeah.
life. There's such a community I have found too where when you're sharing and you're connecting over those like shared passions and things that we're going through, some of these people have become dear friends of mine. And
Yeah.
when then you get the opportunity to meet or be in person, even, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I would do without these people.
Yeah. Oh no, I mean, I couldn't when I reflect on my journey, I couldn't have done this journey, especially the grieving part, without my community. Like, I my girlfriends and my friends are some of the most supportive, incredible, wonderful people. They have been alongside me this whole journey as well, but they don't get it. Not because they're not trying and not because they don't want to get it, but they're raising a family and their parents are grandparents. And like, they're like, my great grandma had Alzheimer's, which is a connection, but it's not the same as caring for your mom, like
Right.
watching your favorite person like disappear in front of your eyes is very different than your great grandma who was 86 and living in a nursing home, or you weren't caring for, I mean, unless you were, some people are, but it's a different journey. And so these people have connected and supported and shared with me along the journey. So I'm also like, I can't go anywhere. These are my friends,
I
and
know
I've
this
met
is
at this
it.
point, I think I've met about 10 people in
Mm.
person, and they've all been just as amazing as I thought they would be. Like it's
It's
been
so
like, oh
fun.
wow, you're even cooler in person.
Yes, I know we get a lot. It's like you've already kind of built that foundation, and then the friendship can just even like grow even more in person.
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
been beautiful.
That's so great. There's part of what we're going to talk about today is grief, and that's a conversation I think we always need to keep having, and it's different for everybody. And it's been a part of your life, more prevalent for sure in the last year. What do you wish others would understand about grief?
I think that the two biggest things that I wish people understood is that it's a very personal journey. So the way that I have grieved my mom is completely different than the way that I grieved my dad.
Mm,
And I'm still the same person. So you can't expect everyone to go through this grief process or grief cycle in the same way. And the other thing that I wish people knew, and that I wish that especially, there's no timeline on grief. I am
mm,
learning that, like, as I go along, it doesn't get, some days get easier. I mean, there's some days that I have good days and I'm just like, yeah, we're doing good. And other days I'm just as sad, if not sadder, than I was the day she passed,
yeah.
and it's okay also if your sadness doesn't show up in the same way, especially with a disease like dementia or Alzheimer's, or especially with the disease where they have had some pain, or there, you might not be grieving in the way that people want you to, and that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that you aren't grieving. You just maybe have grieved. I mean, I have been grieving my mom since she got her diagnosis. I've
Mm,
been watching her lose pieces of herself for 9 years, so I mean, I miss her way more now. Like, if people are like, oh, well, you had anticipatory grief, but like, it's not the same as her
no,
being gone. But
right.
you can grieve. I mean, I'm going to be grieving my mom forever, right? There's going to be things that happen
Mm-hmm.
if we do start a family. I'm going to miss my mom probably more when I
Mm.
become a mom than I do even right now.
You're right. There's no timeline because different things that we go through and experience, we then feel that even more deeply. You had talked about how you had such grief when you heard that diagnosis. And in what ways did you experience that grief before your mom's passing?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, one of the biggest moments that I really realized how much I was grieving my mom was with my wedding. So my mom and I had always talked about my wedding, right? Like, that was something she could not wait to be a part of. That was, I mean, me, like my wedding and me having kids were like the two things besides her just being a mom she was looking forward to. And she couldn't be a part of that. I mean, most of the time I had to remind her I was getting married, and I just grieved my mom being the person I knew she wanted to be. It was, I missed her, right? Like I missed her with everything in me, and it was hard for me. But I think it was even harder for me knowing who my mom was and knowing that she wasn't able to fully experience these things that were so important to her. And so I think just watching her lose herself was the hardest part. It was, I mean, hard, I was sad. I mean, I felt like, I want my mom, but I want my mom to be herself and to feel like it just was really heartbreaking that she couldn't. And I mean, like, she lived with me and my husband, right? And she'd be like, I like Devin. I'm like, Devin's your son-in-law. And she's like, what? Like every time, like, oh, I'm related to this guy. Like, yeah. What? That's crazy. You're wrong, And I'm like, how sad, because my mom was one of those people, like, I mean, so many distant relatives reached out to me that I don't even really remember. And they were even mostly on my dad's side. And they were just like, your mom was just one of those people that always listened, and she made me feel so important. And she always knew my name, and she always connected with me. Wow. And so for my mom to lose names or lose these relationships is just like, how sad.
Yeah. And you knew
another thing, like when my dad passed, like, I mean, she didn't know she was married at that point. So she didn't even, I know my mom, and she would have wanted to grieve my dad, She would have wanted to grieve her love story. And like, I was like, Mom, and I told her, because I knew my mom and I knew I had, like, that was something that felt important. I don't think everyone should do that. Every person is different. That's not my advice to do that. But for my mom, I knew I could. And when I told her, she was like, okay, I'm sorry that you lost your dad. Like, that was her only reference point to it. She was just like, okay, moving on. Like, what's for dinner? And I'm like, okay, well,
here we go.
Moving on,
That's where, when you had talked about, you knew how important it was for her and those moments. And I could see how you wanted her to be able to experience that, and she couldn't. And so the sadness around that.
Yeah, that I think to me was harder than anything that I just missed of her, like, it's just, that's what she would have wanted. She would have wanted to be at the forefront of my wedding, and she would have wanted to really understand what that meant. I mean, she was so happy that day and like living her best life, and everyone was, she was great.
It's like a great party.
But she wasn't really sure what she was celebrating, whereas like, yeah, it's going to make me sad.
Oh, I know. Thank you for being able to share with us. I think people can pull that hope, because you are able to speak to how we can live in it and have our emotions live together, feeling the really big sadness, but you have so much joy in those moments too.
Yeah. And I just think that we don't talk about how sad it is. I remember one of my girlfriends, she had lost her mom, and she told me that like it was really helpful, like early on in my grief, even before my mom passed. And she was like, I didn't realize how sad I would be for so long, and like how I could easily cry for so long. And so you're going to experience that. And that was really helpful for me, because there's sometimes where I kind of felt like, should I be over this? And then I'd cry and I'd be not over it. And I'm like, oh no, my friend, I remember she said that, like, and just hearing that from someone else. So that's why I keep talking about it, because, and I get the internet trolls who like to tell me that to just get over it, but I'm like, I'm not gonna. So now I'm just gonna keep talking about it more,
Yep. Apparently, I feel like too, in people, it triggers something in them that they need to work on. So we've all got our stuff, Yeah, we do. I think that grief can also change our relationships. I think it makes other people uncomfortable when we're grieving. That's what I've noticed. And how have you seen your relationships change for good or maybe not so good?
I mean, I think that when you lose someone, you sometimes are surprised by how the people around you respond and react. And I'm going to be honest, for the most part, I feel like people have responded in really, really beautiful ways. I was very surprised at how my friends continue to ask me about my mom and my friends. I think that's the biggest for me is like, I want to still talk about her. I'm still going to talk about her. I'm going to talk about her for the rest of my life, you know? And my friends still ask me about her and they still ask how I'm doing about things. And they reach out to me, you know, on holidays. And I do really feel like for the most part, I haven't felt anyone in my life try to rush my grief. Maybe because I'm so open online about it. Maybe because I just won't, like, I'm not gonna. But for the most part, I really haven't noticed it changing my relationships in any negative way at all. I mean, I'm really, really fortunate. I realize that. I mean, a little bit. Sometimes I'm just like, the things that people complain about, do they really matter? You know, and I know that I haven't always shown up as my best self. Like when people try to talk to me about like complain about their moms or complain, I'm like, I can't,
Yeah.
I can't
I don't
engage in
have
that
capacity.
conversation with
Yeah.
you. I don't have the time for that. And like,
Hmm.
boo hoo, you know,
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
so sometimes I think maybe I have made people more uncomfortable about things. Because I've also just been really upfront in my grief. And I also sometimes just say things like, and this is kind of a weird example, but like after, so I did that whole Wheel of Fortune thing, and I'm close with a lot of my friends as parents because I'm just, they're my friends. I've
Yeah.
been friends with them for a long time. And so a lot of their parents were like texting me or they were texting them. And one of my girlfriends was like, well, how does it feel? Like you're like, these people are texting you. And I was like, you know what? I don't have a mom. So I love it. And they were like, okay, awkward, you know, like I'm just
Hmm.
saying things like,
Yeah.
but I am just saying them. And most people are pretty responsive if you just kind of say the stuff out loud. I mean, they're a little shocked, but
Completely.
like, you know, but like
Yeah.
I mean, strangers will ask things sometimes and I'm like, oh yeah, I lost both my parents this year. Like, so I'm processing and they're like, okay, that's a lot. But I think it's just so important that people know your story. And so for the most part, I've been really positively surprised at how people have responded. I mean, I think that there's maybe sometimes in my personal relationship with my husband where he wants me a little bit more to think about like what is next and like pushing forward a little bit. So that would be the only change that I've really noticed. Like he's just like, okay, so what's next for you? And I'm like, kind of like, I just want to live in this space for a while, but I don't think it is anything negative. It's just trying to be supportive in
Right.
pushing me to what's next, which is what you want your partner to do.
Exactly. Yeah, that forward thinking. I appreciate the honesty so much. I think sometimes we just need permission when other people say the real things. Then we go, oh my gosh, okay, I can go there. I can say that too. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I
Hmm.
think I mean, I have learned more about strangers or about my friends. Like, I mean, I remember I told one of my friends early on, we were talking about one of our other friends, and I was like, oh, yeah, he's adopted. And they're like, what? I've been friends with him for 15 years. Like, I didn't know he was adopted. And I'm like, adopted people find each other. And now I think it's the same with grievers. Like
Right.
grieving people find each other. Like the receptionist at my dental office, I know that she lost her dad. And like the assistant back there was like, how do you know that? She doesn't tell anybody that. And I'm like, oh, grievers find each other. Like it just gives people permission to talk about these things that we don't necessarily feel comfortable talking about because if you're open, you know, and it doesn't mean that you have to. That's also not how some people process. I'm sure this is not how my sister is processing. It was not how my husband processed his dad. But it for us extroverts or these people that want to process, like they have a space to do so.
Yes, and it's giving permission, just like you had mentioned, that we can process all in our own ways and that it looks differently. So I love that you speak to that because it is so true how we
Yeah.
show up, how we communicate, even like how we interact in our relationships in general. Grief
Yeah.
aside, we're so different. Do you find that other people don't always know what to say? Like, were there things that people said that did not serve you and were not helpful, or things that this is like a multi sided question? And then what did people say or how did they show up for you to support you that was really, really awesome for you?
All of the things that people said, I now that I've reflected, like she's no longer suffering, all the things that I didn't want to hear, like she's no longer suffering, you know, she's in a better place. I'm sorry for, I mean, just all those things that you just say because it's uncomfortable. Like, what do you say to someone who's lost their person? There aren't words for that besides like, I'm here for you. Like, I'll just sit here, like there's just really, you can't say anything that's going to fix it. You can't say anything that's really going to make them feel better. And all that people are trying to do is make you feel better and connect. So like, now that I reflect on it, I'm not so mad. I mean, I still think that I'm like, when people say that she's no longer suffering or she's in a better place, I still kind of push back on those because I'm like, I don't know if you've seen the videos, but she wasn't
She was
suffering,
in a great
like,
place. Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, no, well, no, she was still, I mean, really until the very last couple days, she was still doing pretty good, she was happy and we were connecting, like, so no, I don't love that. But I think that some of the best things that people did after she passed, one of the best things, actually, one of my best guy friends, he had talked to me. I mean, my mom, when I started the hospice process, he reached out to me and he just was like, hey, like, you've started this process, so it's inevitable that there will be a passing of your mom. And when she passes, what can I do that would be helpful? And I think that just asking that question sometimes is really powerful. Not like it was specific, like, what can I specifically do when she passes that will help you? It was not like, let me know if you need help. Like, I'm not going to let you know.
Totally. I'm the same
I
way.
mean, I mean, when people said that to me, I'm like, get me food. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know. Like,
Yeah.
what do you want me to say? Ask someone else. I mean, I was like, at
I've
the
got a
end,
lot going on. Yeah.
I'm like, reach out to somebody else, right? Yeah, that piece was really, really powerful. The other thing was just like thinking, I mean, just really some of the kind words that people sent. I mean, there was just some really genuine, beautiful things that people got from me about my mom that I just would never have thought. Like, one of my friends, my online friends, she had a pillow made of my mom's face. So I still like can hug that and cuddle it. Two of my best friends got a blanket made of my favorite pictures of me and my mom. Like, really, these just comfort, wonderful items that like had a piece of her in it, but also just provided some comfort to me. And also just really like, I mean, and then one of my online friends, she had a picture made, and then my mom's little like diddly noise that she always made, she turned it into QR code. So I can just like scan that picture anytime I want to hear it. I mean, just like these
Wow.
beautiful
So thoughtful.
candles. I mean, the flowers, I mean, all of it was just so beautiful, but there was just some really like intentional thought behind some of the presents. And I was like, wow, I would have never thought of that. Another thing that had happened is actually the people that made my mom's pets, the Joy for All pets, they sent me a week worth of meals. Like, they did not reach out to me. They just had them delivered, and they were like home cooked catering meals, and they just had them delivered to my house. And it just was like, wow, like, it's not just like fast food, or not just, like these things. It was like things that I could reheat and didn't have to worry about dinner for like a week. There was just some really wonderful, genuine things. And just asking to come sit with, I mean, my girlfriends just were like, I'm coming over and I'm going to come sit with you. Like, we don't have to do anything. We don't have to talk about anything. I'm just going to come sit there and be there. And I'm like, cool. I mean, I was like, no, thank you, I'm fine. But then they were like, no, I'm coming over. And that was really helpful, is that they were like, I'm not going to let you say no this time. Like, obviously, if you need me to leave, like really need me to leave, that's different. But I just want to be there. Like, don't worry about your house. Don't worry about anything. I'm just going to come sit next to you.
It's being present, right? Like,
yeah,
just being present. And those gifts were so personal and so intentional. And the fact, what a great reminder with your friend that he asked in advance, right? Of, I know this is coming at some point. And so then how can I be here for you?
Yeah.
We need
And it
to
was
do more
easier for
of
me to
that.
process it than in the moment. Right. You know what I mean? Like, after she passed, I'm like, I don't know, get away from me, but so he knew. He was like, okay, I need to make sure she has, like, I make sure I check in on her, like at the week mark, check in on her. That's what I told my friends. That's the thing that I think about now when I find out that people have lost someone. Like, now I check in with them, that first week, but then I like set a reminder on my phone, check in after a month, check in after a week, check in after a year, because those are actually the check-ins that mean the most, I think. Like, everyone reached out when it happened, I mean, I have people I haven't heard from in 20 years, and I'm like, wow, okay, that's very nice, which is so nice and so thoughtful. But it's the people that continue to check in. They check in on holidays. They check in on my birthday. They check in on her birthday, like those kind of things. That means a lot.
It's over time, and it's because we live with it, right? When it's our loss, that never leaves. And
No.
sometimes I think life goes on for other people and they just get busy, but it's in those quiet moments when it's not right, like right when it happened, that I think does mean so much more. I've got a couple friends that have lost parents and or even a child, and I've made a note like in my phone. I set a reminder
Yep.
on the anniversary and on Christmas, because for me it's like I'm here thinking of you and with you, and I'm just going to sit with you in this. You don't need to respond, but I just need to tell you that, her memory or that is not lost. We're still in this with you. And that is like, just from your perspective, to reiterate that, like, that is so true. It's in those quiet moments. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that it feels something that felt really overwhelming to me was that, like, the world kept going on and I was just sitting there like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Like, how are people still functioning? And so for people to continue to recognize that I wasn't okay was like, okay, like, I'm seen. It's okay that I'm not okay.
Completely. And the holidays. Okay, so we're recording this in December, a couple weeks before Christmas. This will not be released before Christmas, but holidays or family events or birthdays or anything happen throughout the whole year. And it feels a little, I just feel like it's those memories that come up. It can be like the best, happiest times, but it's also the reminder, like that constant reminder of my person is not here.
Yeah.
How do you navigate those holidays? I know. And you're also coming up on, is it the year of your mom's passing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing for me around holidays that I'm learning is setting boundaries. I think that I thought, like, for her birthday was really quick after she had passed. And so I thought, like, okay, I just need to like go and do something and like be out. Like, I went and visited her grave, and then I was like, oh, I'm just gonna go like hang out with my friend and we're gonna have a super fun day. And I wasn't like, I couldn't. So like, setting a boundary that I don't have to do something big around these times seems really powerful for me. Like, for example, we don't have kids. And so I set the boundary that this year was like, we're not celebrating Christmas. Like, we are acknowledging that Christmas is happening. We are, saying Merry Christmas to others, but we are not personally celebrating it in our home. And we're going to be gone the week before Christmas. And then Christmas is also my mother-in-law's birthday. So I said, we're celebrating her birthday on that day, like, there's something else. But I mean, it's setting the boundary that I don't have to celebrate in the way that maybe I used to, and that's okay. But as I move forward, thinking about how I can use these days to honor her is my plan. Like, this year, yes, I'm not celebrating Christmas, but that's not going to be the case forever. So how am I going to think about next year when I do celebrate Christmas? What am I doing that's honoring her and keeping her spirit alive, but also honoring my feelings around Christmas? Because my mom would be very sad if I never celebrated Christmas again, because she passed, because she celebrated everything. I mean, we celebrated my birthday, we celebrated my adoption day, we celebrated, Flag Day, my half birthday. I mean, we celebrated everything.
I could see that in her, just being like, live life to the fullest. Do all the things.
I mean, for my half birthday, she'd always get me half of a birthday present and half of a birthday card. I mean, she just like loved celebrating people. So I wouldn't honor her if I was like, you know what, never doing another holiday again ever,
Yes.
But it is honoring myself by making some boundaries around things and understanding that, like, this one feels different and that's okay. So I think that's the biggest thing, and really just like having a plan for it in your head. Like your plan isn't going to go perfectly and it's probably still going to be really hard, but what am I doing so that I can have a plan in place? Like, am I reaching out to a friend a couple days before and being like, hey, can we do coffee on this day? Or can you just come sit with me? Or asking my husband, like, can you cook dinner tonight? And like, I'm just going to lay in bed, like whatever that looks like is just having some sort of a plan moving forward. I don't know, coming up on a year, I don't know how that one's going to hit. I feel like that's going to probably be the hardest one. But I'm just already thinking about it and how I'm going to use how I'm feeling to navigate that day.
And have a plan, and
Yeah.
the most beautiful thing is that you've let go of what other people's expectations are of you. And you're saying, this is going to work for me. And
Yeah.
we acknowledge that we can change. I love it. One of my best friends always asks me, like, how are you feeling today? Because how I'm feeling tomorrow could be very different. And she
Yeah.
never holds me to the emotion that I'm experiencing at that moment. And there's room
Yeah.
for me to be totally different the next day. And that is so
Yeah.
freeing. That is so freeing.
Yeah. Or like, how are you doing this minute? Right. Like, this, like right now, I could be feeling a certain way, but then in 2 hours, I might be feeling a completely different way. Just really beautiful to honor that feelings are flexible and your feelings around things don't have to look a certain way for them to be valid.
Yeah. And people are interesting. I find they compare grief of loss and they do it in all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because we could be experiencing grief over this little what's not little to us, but what other people could perceive as like a little memory, or I had to go through this journey. And I think people do it, I know, probably out of their own stuff and their own validation. Yeah. Do you ever find that there isn't room necessarily to share the little things because you think people don't want to hear it, or are they more open to that because it's just a part of the whole process?
I think that it does feel weird to share some of the little things, right? Like it is easier to be openly sad on a holiday or a birthday or an anniversary, whereas it might not be as easy to share feeling sad over a random small thing. Like I do feel that people are less open to those things. And just as society, we have this thing in our mind where like bereavement is a certain amount of time, or it isn't, like you're not going to feel just as sad after those days. And there are days that are just going to hit so differently. So yeah, I do. I feel like the small things, and then some things that other people maybe it wouldn't make them sad. It might bring them comfort. Like some of those times are the times I'm the saddest, are things that maybe others would find comforting.
You did so many activities with your mom, like so many really fun things. And so part of that too is like, do you find when you're doing like the fun things that all of a sudden you're like, I feel kind of sad. We used to do all these fun things. And then did you have a favorite thing that you love to do with her?
Yeah, I think that I would agree. Like I miss my mom the most when I'm happy. Like my mom was my biggest cheerleader, even with her dementia, right? Like she didn't understand what was necessarily I was celebrating, but like I mean with like Wheel of Fortune, I think I was actually the saddest that I didn't get to, like, I think about it now, I'm probably going to start crying. I think about it now and I'm like, oh my gosh, my mom would not have ever been able to understand at that point that I was on the show and that I had what that meant, right? But like if we would have watched me on Wheel of Fortune together, I mean, we would be watching it every day because
Yeah,
she'd be like,
she'd be like,
and it's like I miss her the most when I'm happy, when I have something to celebrate, when I'm doing something fun. That it would be really, it's almost like it's not as it's like I don't even know what the right word is. It's not as triggering for me, those things. Like for example, I volunteer at the art class that she was in. I volunteer every Wednesday for the art class she was in, and I thought that would be really triggering because it's the same art teacher and the people that were in art class with her and all these things. And actually it's really comforting for me. Like I miss her, but also it's comforting and feels like gives some purpose to what I'm doing. So I'm like, okay, like it feels great. But then like the come down afterwards when I get home, I mean, I also just want to tell her everything. I want to be like, I volunteer. Like, aren't you proud of me? Like, and also like, she loved me. Like, she was a source of unconditional love. And I don't love myself as much as she loved me, you know? And so, like, I am learning how to love myself like my mom loved me. And that is really hard to learn at 36, you know? Like, I was so used to her just being like, you go, girl, you know, even like, I mean, I have so many videos of her just like pumping me up, like, you're looking good. And I'm like, yeah, you know, like she was just my biggest fan, you know? So that is hard. And then my favorite thing that I did with her, I think honestly, the moments I miss my mom the most are just the quiet moments when we were just like sitting on the couch or laying in bed and we had popcorn or pizza, our dogs, and we were just like next to each other. And just like those moments I miss the most. Like I loved doing crafts with her. I loved vacations with her. I loved all of that. But like those quiet moments were my favorite.
Yeah, it's the true intimacy we can experience with only very few people. Like the fact that you can lay in a bed and cuddle and just connect. It's like we
Yeah.
don't do that with everybody in our
No, I'm
life.
like maybe five
Yeah,
people.
totally. Yeah, like I can count on one hand. I know I was just
Yeah.
visiting my girlfriend, my best friend growing up. She lives in Denver, and that's what we did. We literally would like crawl in her bed, we'd watch some movies. She was like, "Do you want to do anything?" I'm like, "No, I just want time with you because I don't get to do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
I
Oh
don't
yeah.
get
It's
to
like
do
my
this."
favorite thing. My girlfriend and I would love to go like rent a hotel room and just
Yep.
lay in bed, drink a glass of wine and
Yeah,
watch a movie. And like it's our
exactly.
favorite part.
I know. It's so good. We want to share. You said the sadness shows up when you're most happy. And I think it's because with certain people, we want to share our joy and not
Yeah.
everyone can receive it and celebrate with us. And I think
No.
our parents and some of our, really good friends, but it's a small amount of people that will actually be like, "Oh my God, I'm, completely cheering for you. And my joy
Yeah.
is your joy." And
Yeah.
that is when you lose that, it is so, so hard.
Yeah. And my mom just like, she never judged and she always just sat with me in my emotions. And
Mm,
there aren't a ton of people that want to do that. My
right.
husband is a fixer, you know, like most people are,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
And, you know, so he's always like offering advice. And I'm like, that's not what I'm trying to do. Like,
I
no.
just need you to be here. Yeah. Just sit with me in it. You have just learned, I feel like you exude that love and joy and compassion. And I know that you attribute that to your mom. And you are going to, and you are currently doing that, spreading that into the world. So, what a better legacy. And, just she will live on forever. You are doing a lot right now. I know that there's your message that you're sharing, the companies that you're partnering with, wanting to change the stigma around dementia. Where can we learn more about you? And I want to know what's next. I know you've got a couple things on the horizon. So I
Yeah.
would love for people to be able to like find you, connect with you, learn from you.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that Instagram is the best way to connect. And my username is Miss Patty Cake. And then I'm also on TikTok as Care Partner Patty. And then that's like the same for Facebook and our blog. Like I have kind of a small blog, but which is just carepartnerpatty.com. So those are kind of the big places to follow my journey. And then
Mhm.
what's next for me is I'm just really continuing to navigate what's next. So
Yeah.
I'm going to continue volunteering for the music and art class my mom was in. I am going to continue volunteering for the Alzheimer's Association as a community educator. I'm involved with like Caring Across Generations and their care fellowship program. And I'm involved with caregiving.com. So I'm just kind of in a lot of different spaces,
Yeah.
opening up my story to offer to others in smaller spaces and bigger spaces. And I'm just kind of not sure really, going on podcasts
Yes.
and taking opportunities as they come and, really trying to find the connections and find the organizations of people that are doing the work already and lending my voice and story to those organizations to really help elevate their message and then really elevate my message. So that's kind of what's next for me.
So good. I am so excited to see what unfolds. I know it's going to be great. Did you mention that are you caring for a loved one, another loved one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. That's the other thing I'm doing. In fact, she just called me 3 times just during this time because she has an appointment at noon. So my aunt, I have stepped in officially. She is in an assisted living facility, and she has officially gotten a dementia diagnosis in the last month. But I have stepped in to care for her as her person. There was some family stuff going on, and so I've stepped in to care for her. But I'm really setting some pretty significant boundaries in caring for her. It's not going to look the same as caring for my mom. It's going to be more of a long distance role, even though she's close by, but it still looks like, minimum a day or 2 days where I'm with her and, I'm still doing everything, appointments, finances, everything, grocery, all of it for her, advocating. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
It's just another conversation too. I think you can open up, and that's been my passion more recently, is having worked in the senior living world for so many years, but then also being a family caregiver, wanting to bring that together. I think we keep it us versus them, and really it lives, and we are caregivers when our parents move in or loved ones are in a community where they're advocate. We're still providing. Most oftentimes, I don't think people realize you sign a care contract for care support, but then you also sign a rental agreement. And the rental agreement is like any other apartment. So you're sometimes providing toilet paper and toothpaste and all the groceries and all the things. And it's like, okay, my caregiving actually intensified because now I'm having to go.
Different way. Yeah, for sure. No, I am still providing all of those things and taking her. And I'm really, using what I know about best practices to really offer my patience and support for her and really try to honor her dignity. And so, I take her to the store, I let her still do those things because my mom, she could go to the store with me, but she wasn't able to independently do pieces, so I'm trying to allow my aunt to have the independence she deserves. So takes a really long time, but we're doing it.
Good. Oh, you are just the brightest light, and I just have enjoyed this conversation. I've been literally, it's been months. I'm like, okay, cannot wait for this. I can't wait to meet and chat.
I've been so excited too. I know, that's silly. I got called for jury duty that last time we were supposed to meet, and then it got postponed anyway. And so I'm like, I go in January, and I'm like, of course I get called for jury duty.
Oh my gosh, it's meant to be. I'm always like, you know what? Timing is when it's supposed to happen. And I
feel the same way.
Yeah. So good. And I'll include all your info on our episode description so people can find you and learn more and be connected to all the good things. So thank you, Patti. It was so great to talk with you.
Thanks. It was lovely.
Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed our episode, please subscribe and give us 5 stars. In all honesty, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening to our episode.